Hi, and thank you, Miss McDonough, for taking the time to speak with me today. My name is Kimberly Bethea. I am a past president and current member of the APTC, and I will be asking you the same questions that will be asked of all the candidates who will be participating in our virtual Meet the Candidate event. After 15 minutes, we will conclude the interview and with a brief closing statement from you. So the first question that we have is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the Board of Education?
Yeah, definitely. I would say there's a few issues in particular, but one that is pretty close to me is the fact that, the lack of diversity in teachers is something that is such a worldwide issue. And it's definitely something that we experience here in Amityville. So throughout my schooling, I just finished my master's degree. I did a series of projects on the lack of diversity in teachers in the entire United States and how it's such a worldwide problem, but how we can sort of scale it down to really create solutions and, like tackle the issue at the source, at the community level and at the school level, especially with young kids. So that's something that definitely motivates me a lot for rerunning, because I have sort of dedicated a lot of my schooling to this issue. And especially because it's very prominent here, we bring it up all the time in board meetings and things like that. So that's one that I've definitely sort of tried to use my academic experience to bring some knowledge and insight to help here and try and tackle that issue at the source, which I think that Amityville's been doing a great job at that, because the teaching staff has implemented a few programs that get kids interested in teaching before they go off to college. So that's something that, it's been in the works by multiple different people. So that's really important to me. And then just another one, honestly, is well, it's really just, we talk all the time about there being this disconnect between the board or the administration and the school district and the community. So that's something that we have to keep working on. I think that a big part of it is, putting some trust in the people who have the proper knowledge and experience to make the decisions that we're making for kids. So I think that from a community member standpoint, because I'm also a community member, I think that, a lot of my own standpoint on this issue of like a disconnect between everybody that occurs sometimes is, sometimes we have to take a step back and look at, the people who have done years and years of schooling to make these decisions for kids and for schools, and to just, trust that they know a little bit more than we do sometimes as a community, and ask questions, and of course make your voices heard about what you think the issues are, but overall really creating more trust with the people who go to school to deal with these things. So those are probably my two biggest issues that I think are really important, and why I want to stay and keep working on the board.
Okay. What differentiates you from the other candidates and or board members?
I think definitely the obvious thing is that, I am young for a board member. I'm 25, which doesn't really mean anything. I'm just as qualified as anybody else. But I do believe that myself, being that I graduated in 2012, I have a pretty direct perspective and experience of what it's like to be a student, because it wasn't that long ago for me. And just in general, like I attended the public schools here for my entire life, from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. And I believe that that's a really important factor for running for a school district, when, you really have to be there for all the kids and all the parents and all the families throughout the district, and not just the high school, or not just, I think it's important to have experienced being in the buildings, you know, every single building, in your own life before you can really make decisions for the kids that are in them now. So I think that, you know, being that I can still really relate to my experience as a student, only what, 8 years ago or so is when I graduated. So I think that, plus the fact that I attended the district for my whole life, gives me a pretty decent perspective on what it's like to grow up here and go to public school, and, you know, what the student life is like, and what the students deserve. You know, I definitely think that the students now have even more than I had when I was in school, which is amazing. So, but I do think that my perspective and the fact that I am from, you know, a younger generation, I think that that can directly help the students a lot.
Okay. What is your philosophy on special education and educating children that are English language learners?
Special education and English language learners, right? That's what you said? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, definitely a huge part of education is, you know, educating the whole child. I actually well, I actually started a master's degree in teaching a few years ago, that I ended up not following through with because my work on the board really satisfied what I wanted to do in the education world. But I've noticed more and more that when people become certified teachers, they usually nowadays either choose to add on a second certification of special ed, or TESOL, like teaching students of other languages, and, you know, English language learners and dual language learners. I think that Amityville is doing a great job in both of those areas. I mean, we definitely have a large population of students who don't speak English, and their families don't speak English. And I think our special ed and pupil personnel services department are great, and they're doing a great job. In terms of English language learners, I just completed my master's thesis on how to sort of break down access and language barriers for English language learners and families who don't speak English, to help get them to enroll their children in early childhood education, and how those programs can benefit children, especially at such a young age, to prepare them before they even get to kindergarten through 12th grade. So putting in place, you know, training and certification, and having, you know, these qualified people here for both special ed and teaching students of other languages is super important, because it really, you know, we have to educate everybody equally. Not everybody learns the same. Like at the end of the day, in the classroom, you really have to individualize learning sometimes for every single kid. So they're both really important, and especially with especially for both of them, you have to implement, you know, a lot of not training, but, you know, it's really important to make sure that these families who, whether they have children in special ed, or they have children, or they are families themselves who don't speak English, you want to make them feel safe, you want to make them feel comfortable, you want to make them feel like this is a place where their children are going to feel safe and comfortable, and, you know, cared for and thought of, you know, rather than regular ed children or gifted children or children who speak English. You know, you have to really go the extra mile for every student. So yeah.
Okay. Should you be reelected to the Board of Education, what is the first thing you will do? What are your campaign promises to the public?
Well, I guess, I mean, a lot of it is similar to the things that I've done already over the last 3 years. I mean, there's always room for improvement on every board or in every situation in life. You know, we definitely have to work more on breaking down these barriers between the community, you know, unifying people, transparency is a big one, but transparency, I think has to be redefined a little bit for some people in this community or just the community as a whole. I think that transparency has to be more about creating rapport with the community and, creating trust with the community, between the community and the board and the administration. Because the fact of the matter is, when you become a board member, you work really hard for it. And there's a lot of things that are confidential and privileged information. You can't disclose information about teachers or anybody. There's a lot of professionalism that comes with this position. And I do find often that the community has issues with transparency, or they think that the board is not being transparent. And I think that one really important step is to kind of redefine what transparency means and, find more creative and innovative ways to build trust and rapport with the community, I guess, than we've been doing, because it's definitely something that I think needs the most improvement and will probably always need improvement. But I think that while we keep trying, it's something that we have to look at in a different way for everybody, because I think everybody, it's an issue that always comes up, and I think it's a really important one. So I think just sort of redefining what that means for people and how we can sort of work through it together to create better relationships.
Okay. Given the issues that arise, expecting 100% agreement all the time isn't practical. How can the board stay focused on student achievement and academics, which should be the most important focus?
Well, you're right. It's definitely, you're never going to have 100% agreement on every single issue that comes up, and that's 100% normal. Not everybody should agree. I think the beauty of the board is that all of us come from different backgrounds, whether it's, race, ethnicity, age, education, experience. Everybody has a different opinion. Everybody has a different specialty. Everybody has something different to offer, which is also really important. But at the end of the day, it's, somebody could be on the fence about something, or, it could be a split vote or whatever it is, whatever the case is. And the most important thing is just keeping the kids in mind. It's sometimes you have to take a step back and think about, why do I have a different opinion, or why do I feel this way? And more often than not, if your opinion is not based on what's best for the kids, it's important to sort of redirect the way you're thinking about the situation and maybe, listen to each other. And at the end of the day, you're allowed to disagree, you're allowed to have differing opinions, but you want to come together as a consensus, and you want to do the best thing for kids, because at the end of the day, we're in the business of children. And they always have to be the number one priority, whether it's about, their academics, their safety, their well-being, their sometimes even fun for them. We have to create situations and make decisions that are always best for the kids. So I think a lot of the time it's about sort of learning how to give your opinion and learning how to listen to others, but at the end of the day, redirecting it back to, okay, what's the best thing for the kids?
Okay. What do you see as the major issue facing academics and student achievement in our school district?
The biggest issues facing academic and student achievement. That I'm just confirming that you said. Okay.
Yes.
Definitely given sort of the climate and situation that we're in right now with online learning, I think it's definitely fair to say that, we hope that students aren't behind right now. I think that our teaching staff has been doing a phenomenal job at being there for the students, both academically and socially and emotionally, and, really checking in with them, which is the number one thing right now, is everybody's health and safety. But given the situation that we're in, I think that it's important to recognize that, like we could have some issues next year. We could have issues when kids try to transition back into regular school life. So that's definitely concerning. But other than that, I think that the district has made great strides over the last few years, especially in academics, especially since I was in school. I can definitely see some major changes in academics and student achievement and all of that. I think that's something that would be beneficial to keep educating the community on is the school standards rating that we always find online, and more often than not, Amityville has a history of having low or poor standards and things like that. But there are other factors that we have to consider in that area, which is like the test scores and the large opt-out rate that we have, and sometimes looking a little deeper into the school district and finding out more information about why those standards are the way that they are, which is not always because it reflects actual school standing. Sometimes, you have to get to the source and learn about all the good things that are happening here and all the programs that we're implementing and all of the AP classes that we're getting. And, especially with the bond work, we're implementing more classes within the curriculum. We're getting more state-of-the-art equipment to be able to do those things. I definitely think that we're on track to keep bettering ourselves and keep making great strides in the academic area for kids. So, there's, like I've said before, there's always room for improvement in these things, but I see a lot of improvement every single year.
That's 15 minutes.
Okay, so now you can just give us a brief closing statement and that will end our time.
Okay. Does it start now?
Yep.
Okay. So, just in general, I'm running again. I'm seeking re-election because I have the same passion and dedication for the Amityville School District that I had, 3 years ago. And I attended Amityville Public Schools for my entire life, pre-K through 12th grade. I graduated in 2012. I truly believe that this district made me exactly who I am today. And I think it's because of my teachers, my peers, my experiences. All of those things made me feel compelled to give back to this place, 3 years ago when I ran the first time. And I'd really like to continue doing the good work here for the kids. I have nieces and nephews that attend the district. This is my home. And, I care so deeply about the issues of education and education policy and what happens in the world and how to better benefit students that attend, pre-K through 12 schools. So throughout my graduate degree program over the last 3 years, because I just got my master's degree in social science research, I chose to study the lack of diversity in teachers in America. I just completed my master's thesis on breaking down access and language barriers for non-English speaking families to help enroll their children in early childhood education programs and how those programs can benefit them so much. I didn't do all of those things for a grade. I mean, I did, but I did them because I really wanted to merge my work on the board, my volunteer experience, with my master's degree, with everything that I've learned over the last 3 years and put so much time and effort into, because I wanted to use all of those things to help my community and offer some insight and, use my voice for something that's bigger than myself. Because it's allowed me to address real world issues in this place that I call my home and in this district that made me who I am today. And everything that I've ever done is for the kids, and that's what I want to keep doing. So.
Okay. Well, Ms. McDonough, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. Have a great day.
Thank you so much too.
Stay safe.